Time is now 6:36. I'd like to call to order the November 13th, 2013 regular board meeting. And we're going to start it off tonight, being the month of November, where we're actually only going to have one regular meeting in November because of the holidays and such. We're going to do two things a little different tonight. Number one is we had asked Pastor Peggy to give an invocation. November is the month of Thanksgiving. It's a good opportunity for us to give thanks and seek God's blessing on all that we do, and certainly His guidance. Pastor Peggy unfortunately had something come up. She was unable to attend. And I believe she has a surrogate that was going to open our meeting this evening with a word of prayer. So, Mr. Wilson, if you would be so kind.
Bow your heads with me, please. Father, we're so grateful for the many blessings that you've given us. We come tonight with thanksgiving. Thanksgiving for our veterans that we celebrated earlier in the week, who've given so much over the years for their country and for their community. We give you thanks for the civil servants who come serve in different positions, both elected and appointed and volunteers, sometimes for a very small amount of money and sometimes for no money. We're thankful for our police department. We're thankful for our fire department. We're thankful, Lord, that you've given us a country to live in that indeed is free. But we recognize that freedom is not free. Many sacrifices have been given so that we might enjoy the freedoms we have now. We thank you during this month for all the many blessings that we have. We thank you for our community. We pray that you would watch over us, forgive us of our shortcomings. Help us, Lord, to understand and discern what you would have us to do as we help each other to survive and to grow and to continue this community that's been here now for well over 150 years. Lord, we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Second on the agenda is I've asked Don Stevenson to come and give a veterans perspective, considering the Veterans Appreciation that we've had recently. While he's coming to the microphone, come on up to the microphone there. Don and I have a little bit of family heritage together, if you will. Don was a former trustee in this town and actually inspired me to get involved in...
I used to sit in my chair.
I do, I come in and take over, you should know that.
He actually inspired me to get involved in doing more than just run a business and things like that. And it was kind of neat sitting across from Don and another gentleman that had run for sheriff. I think it was it
Jim Rouse.
Yeah, how many years ago was that? How many years ago was that, Don?
About 12 years ago.
And so it was one of those things where it just kind of reminded me of some things that, you know, and I remember where things were at. Don used to be my father-in-law, and I was sharing a little story with him about going and visiting my son-in-law down in Fort Campbell. And sometimes you don't know what the military is going to, why people get involved in the military. You don't always know what motivated them to get involved, but I'll share a brief discussion thing right now. When I went down there to visit my son-in-law, he had just come back from Korea, had served some time over there, and was about to be discharged through the Wounded Warriors program. And didn't know that much about him before he married my daughter. And we're walking around and looking at some of the monuments and the different memorial things and the machinery that was all out there. And he kind of wandered off by himself. And one of the things that I walked over to him and said, "You okay?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "When I signed up for this," he said, "I was glad to get the tuition. I was glad to get the other things that were all about me." And he says, "You know, I haven't given nearly enough." And no matter what I thought about my son-in-law at that time, everything changed. It's the reality that Sometimes the things that you get involved in, you don't always have the right motivation going into it. And who knows what the right motivation is for a lot of things. But I was so blessed to know that the Army had grown this young man into an honorable young man. And as a matter of fact, Don and I were talking about this, not only did he stay in, he got beyond the situation there, but he asked to stay in and ended up going to the Special Forces selection assessment thing. And if he hadn't gotten injured 2.5 weeks into the program, he might have been, going to Special Forces right now. But Don, you've been a great influence in our community, and sometimes we wait until it's too late in life to honor people. If you would be so kind to just share a veteran's perspective, if you will, at this time of the year with the rest of us.
Thank you, Mayor Farquhar. One of the things, you'll have to pardon me, my throat's awfully rough tonight, but I think I can talk through it. One of the things that has impressed me since I got out of the Army, my son has been a career man, he's had 20 years in the service, is that I think people that go into service today, if you know young people that go into service, I'm sure you can relate this experience, that young person that went into service developed an incredibly strict and tough character when he was in service. Because, how many of you been in service? 1, 2, boy, I'm not talking to the choir tonight. There's an old saying in the Army, how come your rifle's not dirty? Well, I didn't have time to clean it. That's not a good excuse. No excuse, sir. Because you don't have excuses for not performing. And you learn that from the time you touch the ground in basic training till you get out of service. And I think I was affected by that, but the people that I know in service now are people of the highest quality character. You can, if they say something, it'll be the truth. And if they say they're going to do something, they keep their promises. And if they say they have a job to do, you know the job will get done. Well, that's the kind of military we have today. Now, when I was in service, it was a little different because I was drafted in service. I knew that when I got out of college, I was going to spend 2 years in service, in the service of this country, and go where they sent me. The Korean War was actively going on when I was drafted. The truce was declared when I was halfway through basic training. My orders were changed. I wasn't going to Korea anymore. I was going to go to Germany as a replacement troop because those people had been over there for a long time. In Germany, Russia controlled the East Zone, the Eastern Communist countries, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Poland, and all that. And they were very busy erecting an electrified fence and laying minefields over there, so people were discouraged from wanting to get away. It was my first experience of seeing a fence that didn't say, keep out. It said, keep in. And those people were literally imprisoned in their country in a communist form of government. I hope we don't get that kind of government here. You know, when you see the things that are happening now, and when you say 47% of the population is already dependent on the government, you have to wonder if we're not headed in that direction. And I would encourage any of you to think twice about some of the things that you ask the government to do. Because nobody asked my parents to become farmers, or their parents to become farmers. They found land, settled it, cleared it, and became farmers. Well, my father wanted me to be better than that, and so he encouraged me to get a college education. And then he said one other thing that I thought was worthwhile. He said, get a license. He said, I don't care what it's in, but get a license, because you'll beat a lot of competition if you have a license. And I got a teacher's license. Well, after teaching a year, I thought, boy, anybody that is a teacher is about half nuts. And so I took a job selling school pictures. And I would say this, anybody that has a job selling school pictures is nuts. And I went back to teaching, and I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to go back to teaching because I really miss teaching. I miss the kids, I miss being there, and I think my experience in the service and the character that had been reinforced in service, I sensed a need for that to be a part of what was happening in the classroom. And I was teaching junior high. I spent 16 years in a junior high classroom. So if you can imagine what that does to your personality, I haven't recovered from it yet. But anyway, when I got out of college, I got a letter from the draft board at home, and they said, you're going to report for duty in 3 weeks. And I took that 3 weeks in my 1937 Plymouth and drove all over the West. I went to Yosemite Park and Yellowstone Park and the Grand Canyon, and I drove and drove and drove and drove, and I got back a couple of days before I had to go, parked the car, and that is the first time that I had ever seen my mother cry. She had 3 sons. The other 2 were in World War II. I was too young for that. And she walked me to the bus, kissed me goodbye, and then turned away. She didn't want me to see her cry, but I saw her cry. Well, we rode down to Fort Knox, and here I was, 23 years old. Everybody else, you know, is drafted when they're 18. And I was older, and that got to be kind of funny, but I won't share all of that with you, but I developed rather quickly a real disdain for the Army. I hated the Army. I hated the idea that people that didn't have that kind of character, I learned later, were people that were in charge. A lot of the people had battlefield promotions from Korea. If you don't know what a battlefield promotion is, there's a simple explanation. If you go out on patrol and everybody else is killed and you're still alive, you get the promotion. My company commander was a captain, and he'd been a sergeant in Korea. And he was as big a drunk as I ever knew. He smelled like a drunk. If you got too close to him, now here's a guy that's supposed to be my leader, and he smelled like a drunk. Well, I did what they told me, because if you don't, you get in trouble, you know. And I really didn't want trouble. I just wanted to be invisible for a while so they would leave me alone. And so when I went out for physical training the first day, and we had to do push-ups, and I did push-ups. I was a farm kid, you know, and so I did 125 push-ups the first day, and the PT instructor left me alone. He says, here's a guy that I don't need to see that he's in shape. And that was fine with me. I went over in the corner every day. We had a formation. I was over on the corner and just doing whatever he said. And do squats, okay, we'll do squats, and do jumping jacks and all that, see. But most of those people needed that, because the people that go to the Army as draftees are not in very good shape. And some of those people really were in pretty bad shape. And if you look at the people that walk out of McDonald's or walk out of Walmart, and you look at the young kids that walk out of there, imagine that those people are wearing a uniform in service. And you'll see why they have to have physical training. Well, I went through all that, and I went through radio school, and I learned to take Morse code, and I could send and receive 20 words a minute. And I remember being assigned to my first station overseas, and the call letters were da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. I had no idea what those mean. I could not translate that into letters. But I knew that's what it was, and if I was asleep in front of the microphone, because I was on for 24 hours, and if I was asleep in front of the microphone and I heard that, boing, I was instantly awake. And so I was a radio operator for 1.5 years over there, and traveled up and down the border as a radio operator with 4 other guys that were a group of 5 people, and we patrolled the border and reported suspicious activities that we saw along the border. I'm going to share this with you. This is the only picture I have of me in the Army. And you can look at it and then hold it up and say, yeah, well, that's the way he looked at one time. But this is several pounds ago. Now, I continued my disdain for the Army all the time I was in there. I tried to manipulate all sorts of things. One of the craziest things I did was convince a sergeant to let me have his motorcycle on a power of attorney. And I drove that motorcycle all over Germany, because it only had one little bicycle seat on it. It was a 225 Triumph, and I drove it all over Germany because I couldn't take anybody else, but I had a wonderful time seeing Germany. And somebody reported me as driving that motorcycle. I don't know who it was, but this alcoholic company commander called me into his office and said, I'm going to write you up for company punishment. And that was a court-martial. And isn't that a handsome picture?
Absolutely. Still is.
You saw it up there. That's me with a 9.5-pound M1 and a 3-pound steel pot, and all the stuff that I wore every day. And we slept on the ground. And it was like, kind of like Brer Rabbit, you know. We'll throw him in the briar patch. We'll make him, and throw Brer Rabbit in the briar patch, and we'll make him hurt. And of course, he lived there. See? Well, I had camped out most of my life, and actually, my wife and I counted up when I bought my first motorhome. We counted up how often I had. How many times I'd slept on the ground, and it was 4.5 years of my life I've slept on the ground, including a bicycle trip across the country, and I slept on the ground every night. And I've done that 3 times. Well, anyway, I carried this disdain for the Army to the point where when I got discharged, I said, well, that's enough of that. I'm through with the Army. And I kept getting these letters saying, you know, now you want to carry on your insurance, and you're assigned to such and such a unit over in Indiana, because that's where I'd gone from. And I tore all that stuff up and threw it away. I canceled my insurance. I disappeared from the Army because they didn't know where I was. I didn't answer anything. And I left it that way until I had a son. And the son made all the difference in the world in how I saw the Army, because he was a problem in high school. He's the only kid I know that flunked gym 3 years straight. And I told the principal when we went to the open house, I said, how is it my son has early dismissal when he's flunking gym? And he called the counselor over and said, would you take care of this? Well, come to find out, my son was working in the office and he programmed himself an early dismissal on the computer and forged the teacher's signature. But he got in the Army, and today he has impeccable character. And I have always said, because my son and I did a lot of combat growing up, but when he was on his own, the first thing the cadre said in the morning, said, you want to get out of here? I'll sign you out right now. You don't want it? Don't want to go to PT today? We'll sign you out. At the end of the day, after you're covered with mud and you're worn out from working all day, say, anybody want out? We'll sign you out right now. And each day, twice a day, he had the opportunity to leave, and he wouldn't want to come home and face the old man, because he thought I was a perfect soldier. And I've never tried to dispel that image in his mind, because I really didn't do anything bad as a soldier. I just didn't like military life. He liked military life. Well, I could talk a long time about my experiences in the Army. Believe me, they are burned into my mind. Things like short-sheeting the guy's bed when we got into learning how to make your bed. You know, you have to bounce a quarter off the bed. You have to pull the sheets tight enough that you can bounce a quarter off the bed. And everybody has to do that. So then they give you 2 sheets and you go on. So other guy next to me was 18 years old and he was just out of high school. So I short-sheeted his bed. When you short-sheet a bed, you start at the mattress and you go down halfway, turn the sheet back up, and fold it on top of the blanket. So if you put your sheet in there, you can't get your feet in the bed. And he couldn't figure out how he made his bed like that. And he wanted to ask the cadre if he'd made a mistake. And I just had a lot of fun that way. But I didn't have a lot of fun obeying people that I thought were not particularly qualified to provide leadership. In the process, I should pass one other experience on to you. I met my son's commander, company commander. His name is Captain Ryan. And I met Kurt Ryan when my son was in Germany and we went over to visit him. He says, Dad, I want you to meet Captain Ryan. And Captain Ryan and I talked, went down to the mess hall and had coffee and sat and talked for about 3 hours. And at the end of that 3 hours, I came back and I had completed a master's degree in leadership and that kind of thing. And I told my son, I said, you stay with Captain Ryan as long as you can, because before he gets out of the Army, he's going to have a star. About 6 weeks ago, I saw his wife pin a star on his shoulder. He's the kind of guy that I'm very proud to say I know, and he's in the Army, because he's impeccable character and he delivers. He works in logistics. And if you think logistics is easy, you know, sure, you take this box over there and take that box package over there. How do you take food and ammunition to guys that are in motion in combat? And make sure they get fed and get bullets to shoot. And he came back from Iraq with a Bronze Star because he could do that. So, I wanted to share one last thing with you, because I'm not trying to get any of you to enlist, so. I wanted to share something that I think is the thing that I like about patriotism. Incidentally, 0.001% of the Army is not patriotic. Like this nutball down in Fort Hood that shot the 30 people. And then says, Allah made me do it. Well, good for you and Allah. Because he's got a life sentence and he may be put to death. And I think it's gracious that he still has his life. Because I'd help him fall down the stairs somewhere if I could have anything to say about it. But anyway, one of the liabilities of being in service is to be captured by your enemy. And this story is a true story written by John McCain in his book, Faith of My Fathers, which was his book about his war experiences. You know, he spent 5.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton and was tortured and starved and that kind of thing. In 1967, decorated aviator John McCain, the son and grandson of prominent Navy admirals and descendants of a Revolutionary War commander, was shot down over Vietnam. With fellow POWs, he was tortured, held in solitary confinement, and imprisoned for 5.5 years. After the war, McCain was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Arizona in 1982. And in 86, he was elected to the Senate. His autobiography, Faith of My Fathers, tells the story of his wartime and political experiences, including the story below. After release in 1973, bombardier navigator Mike Christian continued to serve in the U.S. Navy and retired as a highly decorated lieutenant commander in 1978. Let me tell you what I think about our Pledge of Allegiance, our flag, and our country. I want to tell you a story about when I was a prisoner of war. I spent 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton. In the early years of our imprisonment, the North Vietnamese kept us in solitary confinement for two or three to a cell. In 1971, the North Vietnamese moved us from these conditions of isolation into large rooms with as many as 30 to 40 men to a room. This was, as you can imagine, a wonderful change. And it was a direct result of the efforts of millions of Americans, led by people like Nancy and Ronald Reagan, on behalf of a few hundred POWs 10,000 miles from home. One of the men moved into my cell was Mike Christian. Mike came from a small town near Selma, Alabama. He didn't wear a pair of shoes until he was 13 years old. At 17, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He later earned a commission. He became a naval flying officer and was shot down and captured in 1967. Mike had a keen and deep appreciation for the opportunities that this country and our military provide for people who want to work and want to succeed. No government program there. The uniforms we wore in prison consisted of a blue short-sleeved shirt, trousers that looked like pajama trousers, and rubber sandals that were made out of automobile tires. I recommend them highly. One pair lasted my entire stay. As part of the change in treatment, the Vietnamese allowed some prisoners to receive packages from home. In some of these packages were handkerchiefs, scarves, and other items of clothing. Mike got himself a piece of white cloth and a piece of red cloth and fashioned himself a bamboo needle. Over a period of a couple of months, he sewed the American flag on the inside of his blue shirt. Every afternoon, before we had a bowl of soup, we would hang Mike's shirt on the wall of our cell and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I know that saying the Pledge of Allegiance may not seem like the most important or meaningful part of our day now, but I can assure you that for us, in that stark prison cell, it was indeed the most important and meaningful event of the day. One day, the Vietnamese searched our cell and discovered Mike's shirt with the flag sewn inside and removed it. That evening, they returned, opened the door of the cell, called for Mike Christian to come out, closed the door of the cell, and for the benefit of us all, beat Mike Christian severely for the next few hours. They then opened the door of the cell and threw him back inside. He was not in good shape. We tried to comfort and take care of him as well as we could. The cell in which we lived had a concrete slab in the middle on which we slept, and 4 naked light bulbs in each of the corners of the room. After things quieted down, I went to lie down to go to sleep. As I did, I happened to look in the corner of the room. Sitting there beneath that dim light bulb, with a piece of white cloth and a piece of red cloth, another shirt, and his bamboo needle, was my friend Mike Christian. Sitting there with his eyes almost shut from the beating, making another American flag. He was not making the flag because it made Mike Christian feel better. He was making the flag because he knew how important it was for us to be able to pledge our allegiance to our flag and country. Duty, honor, and country. We must never forget those thousands of Americans who, with their courage, with their sacrifice, and with their lives, made those words live for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Don, if you don't mind, come back to the microphone, and we're going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. If you don't mind leading us in that, I'd appreciate it.
For those that are in the military, you can use a military salute now and not cover your hat. 2, 1. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to do a roll call, please.
Trustee Gregg,
Here.
Gonzalez, Horne, here, Pearson,
Here.
Pop,
Here.
Racick.
Here.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have open to the public, agenda items only. If it's pertaining to an item on the agenda, you may come forward to the microphone. Please limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes. Give your name, address, and if I don't need to remind you, be nice. Any takers? Okay. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'm sorry. Did I miss something?
No, might I suggest that item number 2 be removed from the consent agenda, as that did not make it into the board packet that I can see.
Good suggestion. Mr. Clerk, should you remove item 2? No, I believe we're moving to just a matter of protocol. Where?
Take a motion and amend it. You can have one motion.
But the removing is just a matter of addressing it to the clerk. Okay. So with item 2 removed, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with item 2 removed. Make that motion. Razor? And Horne. Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
Pearson,
Abstain.
Pop,
Yes.
Racick,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
All right, at this point, we have the clerk's report. Mr. Hazer?
I just wanted to ask the trustees and the officials, it's a silly little item, but when you get your packets, if you could recycle those folders to the top of the mailbox where you receive them, or in the clerk's inbox, that would help us a little bit. Item 2, I got a lengthy report from Metra on their budget for 2014, and basically what this means, Your Honor, is they're telling us there'll be no rate increase for the commuters using the electric line this year, so that's nice for the residents to know. And third, I have acknowledgement from, a notice from trustee Pearson. And trustee Pearson, based on that notice, if you'd like to take the floor, or I'm not sure.
That'll be fine. Trustee Pearson, would you like to address the...
Thank you, Clerk Hazer. Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this, but I've notified everyone on the board except Trustee Gray. He reached out for him, but never returned the call. I've actually moved outside of the corporate village boundary lines. One of the things from my service in the United States Navy that we were taught was honor, courage, and commitment. And it used to be God, country, Navy, family. I've learned over a period of 22 years of being married to a very beautiful and loving wife that I had to make an arrangement of those 4 characters. And it's God, family, country, Navy. And unfortunately, at this point, I will have to resign my position as trustee in this village in order to honor the laws of this land, to have the courage to say that, you know, even though I would love to stay on this board, it is important that I represent the law correctly and have a commitment to what's right. So at this time, I presented my letter of resignation to Clerk Hazer and the mayor earlier part of the week, which is one of the reasons why I will not be voting. So at this time, I just wanted to make that acknowledgement to every member on this board.
I'd like to address briefly on that, Trustee Pearson, that you and I have had conversations with the village council, and that there is latitude from some perspective that would have been afforded you as a temporary transitioning thing. I just want people to know that George and his wife, while they've moved outside the municipal boundaries, they have done such with the intent for that to become annexed into the village. They've already submitted paperwork for a petition to be considered for annexation to the village. And if we were going to follow the pattern of the Chicago politics, which we don't, Rahm Emanuel, if you will, indicated that intent is more important than reality. We don't like to play by those rules, even though you could probably get away with it in the Illinois Supreme Court. George, being a man of high integrity and honor, after reviewing the options, identified the fact that it's more important not just to be technically correct, but to be perceptively correct. And all the more reason for me to have the utmost respect for him and all of his decisions that he's made and continues to make on behalf of our community. I know that George has a commitment to our community, living here for well over a decade now, and it's on. And we are expanding our boundaries, as you know. We had a special meeting last week where we were in the process of doing some annexations. I expect to see more of that. Word's getting out in the surrounding communities. What are you guys doing? We're just doing what needs to be done, and that's building a community, building a strong community. And there will be other opportunities for George to be involved, and we'll talk about some of that later. But George, you've been a great friend to the community. I look forward to seeing you in and around and coming to the podium and confronting us when so deemed necessary.
Absolutely.
The Bible talks about the fact that iron sharpens iron, and George has been one of those sharpeners for me. And you guys have no idea how dearly I consider his friendship. So, thank you.
May I say something to you?
Absolutely.
First, I want to commend you on your appointment, George, because George, I have the utmost respect for your input here, and I'm going to miss it, sir. You're a loss to the community, okay?
Thank you.
I would like to say something too. I've just really appreciated George's insight when we've had discussions. He'll say something and I'll think, I never thought of that, which is always surprising because I always think I know
Everything?
everything. So I'm going to miss that as well, George. So God bless, and I'm sure we'll see you around.
Absolutely.
Thank you, George. Now, George, I'll say this, sit with your wife for a little bit, but good to be back. Okay, anything else, Mr. Hazel?
That's the end of my report.
He's not really leaving,
Yep.
Okay. All right, Mr. Minister.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one item under my portion of the agenda. Before you, you have an extension of a redevelopment agreement with Monee Venture 3 LLC. We do have a representative in the audience here, should there be any questions. I would like to explain that 2 years ago when this expired, it was an original redevelopment agreement, and at that time they sought an extension, and the village saw fit to renegotiate portions of the redevelopment agreement that were commensurate with the, or pertain to the financial portions of that agreement to better have a reflection of the current economic times. That was completed with both sides agreeing and getting down to brass tacks. And what we have here before us is just another extension for 2 years. And the significant reason behind these extensions is simply that we have not achieved full recovery in the economic situations as yet. And in an effort to allow Monee Venture 3 the opportunity to fully develop their property, the extension would be in order. And that is, the staff recommendation is to approve the extension that lies before you today. If there are any questions, gentlemen, I'm happy to come up and answer any questions at this point.
Any questions for anyone? Okay, one more,
I do have a question. questions. Is there anything on this site right now?
There is not. It is totally undeveloped.
And does the developer, maybe you can come up here. Hi there. When do you see any breaking ground, anything on this property? Do you have a timeline?
We don't at this time. We continue to pursue different opportunities in the marketplace. Most recently, we had a very good opportunity for a build-to-suit with Liberty Furniture. We were very competitive on that. It's my understanding that we were as or more competitive than the horse they picked for that, which happened to be an existing building down the street that Northern Builders also developed, as the former Commander Packaging building. But of course, that building has the same incentive as this site, and what allowed us to develop it in the first place.
Is there any further questions?
So you would like that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir, I believe that you, attorney, would this require to be asked for the minutes?
Yes, sir, as long as it's on the record, the motion approving the extension of the petition.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, Gonzalez and Pop. Okay, roll call please.
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Racick,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, that concludes my report.
Okay, quite a bit on my agenda for this evening. To start with, I would like to, based on the resignation tendered by Trustee Pearson, I need to declare or acknowledge a vacancy of office in the office of trustee. So I'm not sure if that simply requires a vote or just an affirmation of that.
Should be a motion acknowledging, so it's in the record motion.
So I'll accept the motion to acknowledge the vacancy of office as left by the vacancy by trustee Pearson. I'll make that motion. Okay, Raisik and Horne. Need a roll call on that, please?
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Racick,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
and Horne, please.
Yes.
The next, item number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 are all some variations, some amendments that needed to be formulated, just to confirm some anomalies, if you will, that needed to be overcome and addressed. I imagine you've all had a chance to review the amendments there. Give an example, the first one, the police and fire, and just so everybody understands, we have a fire district, not a fire department in our municipality, but the statute refers to it as the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners. Commonly we refer to it as the Police Commission, but it is actually, once we exceeded 5,000 residents by the census, we were required to implement a fire and police commission. That commission was implemented, if you look at item 5, clarification of commission terms as they were as of a couple days ago, if you will. You'll identify the expirations, and some of that needed to be realigned. They were all supposed to be set to a expiration at the end of the fiscal year of the municipality. Some of them had like August or December, and different things like that for some of these, but according to statute, they're supposed to, the term is supposed to technically expire at the end of the, I think it's for the fiscal year of the municipality as well as election cycles and everything else. It just makes sense. That way, you're not stuffing people into positions that are going to be inherited by somebody without them having the opportunity to deal with that. So there's some clarification there on that. Needless to say, some of this needed to be tweaked a little bit. We've had a police and fire commission that had been enacted for 2.5 years, but had never even held a meeting. that could have put us into some very difficult situations. Had it ever been addressed and ever actually had the specific needs addressed on that. Trustee Pearson had actually been spearheading that initiative and making sure that we were in compliance on those issues, and I'm grateful for his not always so gentle but necessary product to move that along. So, needless to say, we have item number 2 is an amendment for ordinance number 1575. I would seek a motion to approve that. I'll make that motion. Trustee Razor? So that's item G2 on the agenda.
Did we get a second?
No.
Oh, no second.
Okay. All right. And then I take a roll call.
We need a number now.
Okay. What was the new ordinance number on that, Mr. Hazer?
That would be ordinance 1665.
Okay.
It's 1665.
Is okay. Yes, please.
Trustee Racick,
Yeah.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
and Pop.
Yes. Next item is clarifying the definition of compensation for the Fire and Police Commission. And we followed the pattern that was implemented for the planning and zoning. This was a little bit of a variation on that, because there might be occasions when they need to meet repetitively in a series of dates because of, like establishing certain promotional lists, hiring situations and things like that, or disciplinary matters, and they might go 2 or 3 months and not meet at all. So it seemed prudent to follow the pattern used by planning and zoning to establish that the compensation would be $100 per meeting, which is what P&Z does. But the stipulation is not to exceed $300 in 3 months. Meaning, so if they met 2 or 3 times in 1 month, because that was the nature of what needed to happen, the compensation would max out for a quarter of the same amount that would be for another zoning, like the zoning commission. So, just want to find the responsible way to compensate without overcompensating and whatever situation may be around that. So, that is what item G3 is regarding to, and I would accept the motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Trustee Rizzo. And I need an ordinance number for that, please. 1666.
That is correct, Your Honor. All right.
Yes, please.
Trustee Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Racick,
Yes. Okay, one moment, please. And there again, as we move forward, we look at some of our ordinances and realize that to be consistent with statute and local implementation of those statutes, we have, because there's a planning commission and the zoning board of appeals, and there's been, there's typically a blending of the 2 of those. And so I've asked the attorney to review that, and there's 2 matters here. Item number 4 is simply a reaffirmation of how it's an approval amending Title 11, Section 2, Chapter 4B of the Planning Commission. So that section needs to be adjusted slightly to make sure we're in compliance. The second item, and I'm gonna just address this and we'll go back and deal with these independently. The second item has to do with the compensation. There is a, I'll give you that later. Yeah, the second item had to do with an ordinance number 1424 that we didn't get in there because we thought it was actually gonna be all inclusive, and that had to do with the compensation for the same, and we just need to reaffirm that. So what we'll do here is item number 4 as stated. I simply need a motion to approve the amendment to the Title 11, Section 2, Chapter 4B of the Planning Commission. I'll entertain a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Second.
Trustee Raisik. And that would be an ordinance on that as well, so that would be an ordinance number 1667. And roll call on that, please.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and address item 4B, which we'll address at this point, but we'll have to reaffirm at the next meeting just for, proper, so at this point I'm asking for a consensus that we adopt a similar method of compensation that we just indicated for the police commission, which would be, and the attorney needs to draft this because there's been a blending of the planning, zoning, and all that kind of stuff. This is all leaning towards the planning side, and the zoning board would not actually receive compensation. It's all done through the planning commission, which is a duplicity of roles. So, and the compensation for that, just to be clear, and this is a modification of ordinance number 1424, which also is referenced. And so we're looking to give direction to the attorney to amend ordinance number 1424 to make the relevant changes so that it comes in compliance with our definitions as stated. And so this is just a consensus at this point because it'll be reaffirmed at the next meeting.
So I just want to clarify those 1667 that we just adopted, we're just going to clarify.
1667 has already been approved, that's voted on, and that had to do with the definition of the planning commission. This 1424 is an older ordinance that has to do with the compensation, and we had a hard time finding the more contemporary version of that, but we need to make sure that we establish correctly the current compensation amounts. 1424 indicated $75, we've actually been compensating $100, and we were unable to find that specific ordinance, so we need to reaffirm the correct compensation is $100 per month for the planning commission itself. And the zoning board would then not have compensation, it would just be planning commission to be receiving compensation. And that would be in the form of a motion. The amendment, ordinance number 1424 would be amended to reflect the changes that would authorize the attorney to redraft that.
I thought you just needed a consensus.
It's a consensus, yeah, but I just need a motion for that consensus.
Yes, ma'am, it's a consensus tonight, and then what I'll do, you're giving me the authority to draft it according to what the mayor indicated.
So, I mean, just so I could get a first and a second, that's fine, so.
Yeah, consensus, yes.
Okay. Do I need, is that okay, just doing a consensus?
Yes, sir.
That's fine. All right,
Yes.
trustee Gray, good.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez, good. Trustee Horne?
Yes.
Raisik? Pop? Good. Thank you. All right, now, drum roll, please. It's important that we continue to move forward, and as we have vacancies, we need to make sure that we do everything we can to maintain continuity of office. No one person can do this job alone. It's important to have the diversity of perspectives that we've had here. We've all admired and appreciated the input of Trustee Pearson. And that was a hard decision that I had to make in appointing him to that position before, because there's another very much qualified individual that had run the race in that same position. I would like to, at this point, make the recommendation for an appointment to fill the vacancy of village trustee to David Holston. And I need that's my recommendation. and I believe I need the consent and approval of the board.
Yes, sir.
So do I need a motion on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so Horne, and then Raisik, okay? And then I'd like a roll call on that, please.
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne.
Yes.
Welcome aboard, sir. Next on the item, appointment to fill vacancies of the planning commissioners. And on this, we have, I need to clarify something here if I can. I believe that contingent upon the approval of the board to appoint David Holston to the position of trustee, that I'm just gonna, Mr. Holston,
Yes, sir.
do you likewise resign your position as a planning commission, which would be a requirement?
Who's gonna pay more?
Wrong answer.
Yes, I do.
All right, so, Mr. Clerk, if you could acknowledge the resignation from the planning commission, which thereby leaves an additional vacancy.
Duly acknowledged. And for the record.
Do I need to have the board acknowledge that vacancy?
What I would do, sir, I would recommend you follow up in writing,
I will.
and then we'll put that on the record, and you could do that.
Can I go ahead and fill the
Yes, sir.
positions up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, based on that vacancy, I now have 3 openings in the planning commission, and the individuals that I have recommended for that, and I can do them one at a time if the board prefers. The first one is Vince Neary for planning commission. And I am making that recommendation, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent for that.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Gonzalez and Raisik. Okay. Any discussion on these at all, or? Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gray,
No.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne.
Yes.
Mayor, do you want to add a vote to that?
I probably need to, do I not?
You have the right, sir, yes.
Yeah, and I'll vote for my own choices. Second would be Josh Zumhagen. I'm looking for that in the form of a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second it.
Roll call, Your Honor.
Yes, please.
Trustee Raisik,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
and Pop.
Yes.
Mayor, would you like to have your vote?
Yes, please. And the third on the vacancy to fill there would be Leonard Ryan,
Spell the last name for me.
Rhein. And I'm looking for that in form of a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Rizzick,
Second.
trustee Gray. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Yes. Okay. On the police commission, which is the next item on there, I'm sorry, correct. Starting to sound like we're striking. Appointment to fill vacancies of the board of fire and police commission. On that, we have, according to the schedule that was presented to you on item G, 5, that is the appointing commission terms of office. Technically, all 3 are open for replacement. At this time, I'm going to leave Dan Grzeszewski in place. And then the first appointment I'm going to make recommended would be Michaela, Bradley. And I'd like a motion to approve that recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Okay, Gonzalez and Razor. Roll call, please.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Horne,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Yes. And for the third position on the police commission, after talking to legal counsel and reviewing our options on this, I believe it'd be appropriate that I would make a recommendation for George Pearson to fill the position of the police commission. I'll second. Okay, Pop and Razor. Roll call, please.
Trustee Horne,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Raisik,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Yes. And at this time, for those that are present, for those that are not present, can we do it at the next meeting, or we can just,
It's supposed to be following, so here tonight and the rest of it went up to the next one.
or like, if I have somebody that'll be at the next planning meeting, if I have to be at that, you and I can go through that at that time.
That's fine.
That's fine. All right. So at this time, if I could have Mr. Holston come forward. Sure. Larry, do you want to, yeah, or Wayne, do you want to do it?
No, the turns good.
Forgot to bring the family Bible for you.
Raise your right hand. I, David Holston,
I, David Holston,
having been appointed to the office of village trustee
having been appointed to the office of village trustee
in the village of Monee,
in the village of Monee,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of trustee
of the office of trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay. Next would be Vince Neary. For the planning commission.
I, Vince Neary,
I, Vince Neary,
have been appointed to the office of planning commission,
appointed to the
office of planning
office of
commission
planning commission
in the village of Monee,
in the village of Monee,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
county of Will aforesaid,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of planning commission,
the duties of
office of
office
planning
planning
commission,
commission
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I believe Leonard is not here tonight. Josh? Josh is on here. Some hiding.
Tim Hagen's on Hagen.
Don't say like Josh.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh. Tim Hagen.
Having been appointed to the office of planning commission
Having been appointed to the Office of Planning Commission
in the village of Monee,
in the Village of Monee,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
in the County of Will aforesaid,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of planning commission
the duties of the Office of Planning Commission
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Next one, John. Next will be the police commission, and that would be Michaela.
I'm Michaela,
I'm Michaela Brandon.
having been appointed to the office of police commissioner
I've been appointed to the office of police commissioner
in the village of Monee,
in the village of Monee,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
in the county of Will-Forest.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of police commissioner
of police commissioner
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Has anybody ever heard of a guy named George Pearson? No? Told you not to get
I, George Pearson,
I, George Pearson,
having been appointed to the office of police commissioner
having been appointed to the office of police commissioner
in the village of Monee,
in the village of Monee,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
in the county of Will aforesaid,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge my duties
of the office of police commissioner
of the office of police commissioner
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Okay, that's all from me. Next on the agenda is the attorney's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one item for board's consideration, a proclamation declaring December 2013 National Drunk and Drug Driving Prevention Month. Whereas motor vehicles crashed, killed 956 people in Illinois during 2013. And whereas hundreds of those deaths involved a driver impaired by alcohol and or drugs. And whereas the December holiday season is traditionally one of the most deadly times of the year for impaired driving. And whereas for thousands of families across the state and the nation, holidays are a time to remember loved ones who are lost. And whereas organizations across the state and the nation are joined with the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over and other campaigns that foster public awareness of the dangers of impaired driving and anti-impaired driving law enforcement efforts. And whereas the community of Monee is proud to partner with the Illinois Department of Transportation's Division of Traffic Safety and other traffic safety groups in an effort to make our roads and streets safer. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Mayor Jay Farquhar and the Board of Trustees do hereby recognize December 2013 a drunk and drug driving 3-day prevention month in the village of Monee, Will County, Illinois, and hereby call all citizens, government agencies, business leaders, hospitals, and healthcare providers, schools, and private and public institutions to promote awareness of the impaired driving problems, to support programs and policies to reduce the incidence of impaired driving, and to promote safer and healthier behaviors regarding the use of alcohol and other drugs this December holiday season and throughout the year. Be further proclaimed that this proclamation shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. Passed and approved this 13th day of November 2013.
I'll entertain a motion for that to be a resolution. Proclamation? Not a resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Gonzalez and Gray?
Roll call here.
Yes, please.
Trustee Pop,
Yes.
Grayson,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
trustee Holston,
Yes.
Okay, next, we have the officials report. We're going to first on there. Trustee Bob.
No report at this.
Okay. Next on here is trustee Gray.
I don't have a report about the basketball courts. I'm not really sure how that got on there, but I do have a report about the Halloween happenings that we did.
Okay.
Seeing that this is our first meeting since then.
Okay.
Besides myself, trustee Gonzalez, trustee Razik, went off without a hitch. I'm getting there. And we had about 125 people out there that night. Plenty of volunteers. We had trustee Pop, Ron Pulaski, Dave Stockton, Deputy Powell. We had 4 kids inside getting some school activities hours in, a great DJ, and we had pretty good weather, and the hay rides went really well. Again, I appreciate everybody that came out, and I appreciate everybody's help that was there, and again, looking forward to doing it next year. End of report.
Any other comments on how long happenings from you?
I don't remember getting any recognition for Coney this
Oh,
year.
yes.
You didn't
I didn't know who it was,
so-
so, sorry, sir.
When you said a great DJ, were you talking about our superintendent of public works, or were you talking about a guy?
I'd also,
Meeting that night.
yeah, there's a scary clown out there too, I don't know. Anyhow, I think it did go well. I personally would like to also recognize Michelle Powell for, while everybody else went home, Michelle stayed late and did a lot of the cleanup after the after-party cleanup, if you will. And there's so much that needed to be dealt with afterwards that she came back Sunday and continued to do cleanup by herself. And I think it's commendable to a fault. And Michelle, you have my deepest gratitude for the excellence that you've shown as well. And that was as an employee who chose to step out of her role as an employee and do this without compensation. And you want to give a speech? If you guys have been around the front office much, you know that we like to give Michelle a hard time. But in all the gesting and everything else, she does a phenomenal job, and it's great to have her on our team. So she is one of the pillars of our front office and needs to be recognized for that occasionally. So thank you, Michelle. Next, reports, brief summary from those that attended the IML conference.
Actually, I just had one more.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I guess for the tree ordinance that didn't get on there, I know Mr. Wallace will probably talk to him. Again, we're gonna try to finish this up. We've been talking about this ad nauseum, but it's become planting season right now in the village, and we have gone through and got our certified arborists, we've got the inventory, we've got a bid for the trees, and we will be able to get about 30 trees in this fall. It's been determined between Mr. Wallace and DJ, the arborist, and the gentleman installing the trees, by ordinance that we want to do like 20%, no more than 20% per region. By the small amount of trees that we can install, they will all be the same kind, you know, placed around the village, and they'll be red maple. And they'll probably be going in the next week or 10 days, you know, to make the fall planting season.
It's not too late to get those in yet with the frost and everything?
No, and as I've been assured by our installer, that until the ground freezes, it is very safe to get all those in the ground. If it's too frozen to dig, of course they will not make it, but right now we are absolutely in the prime time to get these dormant trees in, so they will need 0 to very little watering as well.
And just so everybody understands, there's been a great deal of effort that's gone into the whole issue pertaining to the emerald ash borer, and Trustee Gonzalez has really stepped up and held our public works to a measure of accountability that they don't mind. And we all need accountability, and we all need to make sure we're measuring that level of performance that we need to attain to. And that's how we continue to improve our serve, if you will, to the community. And Trustee Gonzalez, thank you so much for staying with us. It wasn't just a passing thing, it was something you had set your heart on before you ran for trustee. and followed it through, so thank you very much. All right, yes,
I would like to add something on behalf of trustee Gonzalez. She's asked me to, in her efforts to keep the board well informed, that there's a likelihood that we will exceed the budgeted amount for that one particular line item, but rest assured that we will not exceed the total appropriation for that department, so
understood.
we'll be well within there.
Okay, thank you very much. Everybody's okay with that, as long as we don't go with the department. Okay. Anything else before we go to the IML follow-up? Okay. And I'm not gonna be real hard on this. I know that some of you went for one day, some of you went for a couple days. I'm just looking for a general summary so that people understand, why do we send our officials down to a convention? It's not just for the fraternization and things like that, it's for building our insight and our skills. It's not just so we can get a picture taken with Abraham Lincoln. Oh, I did too. Dave, you've been impressed. Anyhow, so who wants to start as far as providing a brief summary?
I will start. And, one comment I do want to make, I was talking with another village official from a local village in this area, and he was saying that the rest of his board flew out to Seattle for a conference, a week-long conference similar to IML. And I immediately thought, I don't think our village would ever do something like that, to, fly the whole village board out to a conference out of state, or just the costs would, I don't think I could even,
I'd be looking for a satellite teleconference or something.
yeah, but another village does it. So I think, my only point is, I think we try to be fiscally responsible, and that's part of the reason we're doing this. I went to a lot of sessions. One of them that I thought was especially good, or interesting, or applicable to us is the nuts and bolts of the motor fuel tax. So I know it's probably a very boring topic, but the point is that it's good for us as trustees to know exactly the little bit of the history of the motor fuel tax, where it comes from, and how we can use that, our allotment in the village. And there's specific things you can use it for, and there's specific things you cannot use it for. And that's what this meeting, this seminar addressed. So that was very helpful to me. That's all I'm.
Good, thank you. Anybody else like to add any comments pertaining to what they observed or learned while they were there?
I'm going to share one too that I was able to do a few of the sessions, but I do think my favorite one was economic development and secondary education as it relates to our village. And why I wanted to go with that too, because as part of the school board and as the community liaison, I was able to be a part of the Business Education Partnership and the foundation, and Project Lead the Way, which is a pre-engineering and scholarships as part of the foundation, that I found interesting that in economic development communities, and they use as case studies Peoria, which is obviously a lot larger than us, and even a smaller town, smaller than us, thinking, and the one most profound statements is, education is economic development in a village. So as part of what we were doing as part of the market study and finding out who was living in our villages and what kind of programs does our school district have and our school programs have. We already have, ways and means ahead of many other communities, because we have the groundwork laid for all of those programs already here. So just, marketing those things to, the economic development. We're in a prime location to attract those businesses, to even find a school, the schools or the apprenticeships that the kids need, or the manufacturing, what they want to bring here, that we, have trainable employees already for them, already living here. So I think, that being said, I think we're in a really great spot compared to what a lot of villages and municipalities are dealing with at this point.
And I'll second you. I said I'm briefly at one of those meetings with Trustee Gonzalez, and And I know where her passion is, and it's phenomenal to think about the fact that our school district is much better than people even give it credit for. We have some hidden gems in our school district that people overlook, and they don't realize all the programs that are available there, and it's a tragedy that we don't do a better job. The school district doesn't do a better job. I mean, we need to be the ones to step up to help businesses understand that. But there is definitely something to be said about when businesses are looking to relocate to a community, about the workforce readiness and preparedness. And with Governor State now being the 4-year college, and you know, our own school district being able to offer some things that a lot of people aren't even aware of, the economic potential there is huge as long as we can get the word out.
And this is, you know, something we too, since we've been back already, have forwarded stuff from the school district and, you know, summaries of all these courses already available to put right up on our website already too, so, starting the wheels are turning.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Well, I attended about 5 different sessions, but one of them did impress me a little bit. And I don't mean to, this is the last thing I always wanted to, and I've said this to anyone, I do not like to embarrass anyone in public, and I'm not trying to do that at all.
You do it to me.
I would hope that we follow one of the things they said in this, which is, it's not just the big things. Now, we have people that come in and pay a bill. Some probably pay with cash, some with checks, some with this, some. And their suggestion at the session was that you should have 2 people in or something like that. It's a safeguard. In other words, it's not one person taking the money in and recording it. You have a safeguard by having 2 do it. I don't know if we do it, is my point. And I think it's a great idea. That can stop any possible problems, is my point. I did learn that at that one. The other thing, I could talk about each one of them. Interacting with other trustees and mayors is very interesting too, because you really find hands-on what's going on in other villages, so I thoroughly enjoy it. End of comments, and you don't have to comment to my comment, it's okay. We'll talk later.
Which one is fun? Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, we're the same one. So the council wars, they have it every year. It's a very interesting, it's a 3-hour basic sit-down with one of the most popular ones there, about 150 people and 6 lawyers. And to tell you this much, as much as some people might think that we butt heads a lot in public here, you should go to this council wars and listen to other villages, how much distress they're in. We're not that bad here. There are some villages right around us that they can go for 8 hours. But it's very interesting, and it's one that I've gone through for the last 3 years. Myself and Anthony, and actually Deputy Power sitting in on it, and it's 40 questions. They don't go over all of them. You get all the questions, you get all the answers at the end of it. It's some very interesting, just like Jim Pop said, interacting with the other villages to see what they're doing, how they react to certain things, and how we react to certain things. It's only a 3-hour session, but they really could go all day.
Yeah, they needed it.
Not long enough.
Any other comments? Anthony, you good? All right, thank you very much for all that, and anything under old business?
I do want to bring up one thing, and I guess this is old business, but I want to bring it up for the next meeting, I guess when December will come. We approved a couple months ago a cost for an updating of the website, which there was a Justin that was approved and a bill approved, that we were going to have that within, and launched within 45 days, and I want to get an update on that and how far he's gotten, and when we're ready to relaunch that webpage.
I had looked at some of the, it's a back and forth, and it's an availability of personnel. The initial delay was.
Well, and all I'm saying is, you know, I don't want to kick off our.
Not off guard at all, I've been checking on that as well. The initial delay had to do with, there was a deposit required by the vendor, and there was a processing delay that took place before that check was provided to the vendor, a down payment, if you will. And then there's been the back and forth with us having some recent hirings and things like that. There has been some internal delays on the response of some of that. But I did see.
Shouldn't affect his availability to get some of this.
No, but if he's giving us samples and we have to respond to the samples, of design issues and stuff like that, then there is a potential for a delay on that. And that's some of what took place. So there's an initial delay because waiting for the deposit. Secondarily, there was a delay between myself and the administrator just having the opportunity to respond to the samples that we took. So it is moving along. I did see the interior page samples, and it's not ready to go on the street yet, but it's getting there. So, thank you. Yes, sir.
As a follow-up, I did send an email last week. That ball is in the developer's court. I did send an email for an update, and I would expect one.
Accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would expect to hear from him before the end of the week this week. Mr. Mayor, would I make a couple of comments regarding IML?
Sure, absolutely.
There were just a couple of things that I attended that might be of interest to trustees and those involved. I attended a manager's roundtable that dealt with video gaming boutiques that are popping up all over. And the one thing that came out of that is basically they're limiting the number of drinks you can have. They may serve a light lunch, and it's really set up for the purpose of gambling, and that's it. And the consensus was that most of the ways in which they control those are via the liquor license. So that's something to keep in mind if we happen to hear of anything like that. Responsible bidder ordinance was another hot topic. It requires responsible bidders to be those who would offer an apprentice-type program. And every way that is looked at seems to be trouble for small communities to drive the price of any projects up. And then I did attend a legislative update, and it appears that there's a likelihood that the temporary income tax increase is likely to be extended beyond 2015. Probably doesn't catch us off guard much. And then at the same time, the legislators may take up the progressive income tax proposal. That has been up before and hasn't gotten much traction, but they may be looking to reintroduce that. The pension fund status is in committee and stagnant at this point, kind of a political deadlock. And here's something that's very interesting as we approach the 2014 elections, that currently the Democrats have a supermajority in both the House and the Senate. So therefore it's veto proof. And the real question lies on why can't we resolve any issues, one being the pension fund, when you have a supermajority. That's a rhetorical question and something that maybe we should all ponder when we go to the polls in 2014, but it's certainly interesting to say the least. I did attend a vacant property seminar as well, and really what it boils down to is that is a very methodical and intense ordinance that needs to be written and adopted, and probably is better left to those who are very familiar with it. So any municipality that's looking to go out and develop one of those ordinances, it would do good to hire that outside as opposed to doing it in-house, providing your current council is not an authority on vacant housing. And last but not least, financial management, which was presented by Sikich, really focused on some of the small things. The big things you can kind of keep an eye on, but it's those small things, and I think Trustee Pop touched on it. It's some internal controls, and this being the audit season, I felt it appropriate to attend that. And last but not least is that it's what you need to know about retail. And I attended that knowing that we have authorized a retail market study, and that the results of which every trustee should have received a copy for pondering. And the basic outcome of that, result of that, is that we can, as communities across the nation, we can want what we want, but we will only get what we can sustain. And it's very difficult to have those two match up. And it takes a lot of work to do that. You know, we want a grocery store and we haven't been that lucky at this point. Well, there's things that we can do in the future as we grow the community to get closer to center that would meet the requirements for getting a grocery store. And it is a long and arduous process sometimes, but you know, it's just something that we need to work toward, and there are avenues which we can pursue with our, you know, in business meetings, and sometimes the chambers are very active in that, but you have to develop that, sense, if you will, that, I don't know exactly the word I'm looking for, but the drive, and everyone needs to be on board in order to obtain those goals. So that pretty much wraps it up. It was a very informative few days there, and I appreciate the opportunity to attend on behalf of Monee. So that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Anything else on our old business? Anything on our new business?
I have something. I put on your desks this evening a copy of an invoice that I signed off on this week. Now, as a trustee with power of the, I don't know how you put it, I signed the checks. Power of the exchequer, signer of checks. I came across this invoice that I wanted you to be aware of. And the thing that really caught my eye, and by the way, this is for our administrative, our adjudicator. Is that the correct term for? Administrator for our administrative hearings. So this person is a lawyer that does this for us, comes in twice a month to do this. The thing that caught my eye was not the rate or anything like that, but the fact that we are being charged travel to and from their place of business, which is in Lansing, to the village hall, a round trip of 39 miles. And I thought, boy, I wish I could charge in my business for my mileage. So that kind of raised an alarm with me. So did some investigating with this, talked to our administrator, and the history of this is that this person has been doing this before I've been a trustee, before Mr. Walls has been our administrator, so at least 3 or 4 years. They're also charging for, and this may be, I don't know who negotiated this or anything, 3 hours per session that they're coming here, which is preparation for travel to and from, and attendance at administrative hearings. They're charging 3 hours for doing this. Now, Mr. Wallace informs me that they're usually only here an hour, maybe an hour and a half. My point is, in all this, is that I think this is well, there is no contract for this, from what I understand. My point is that I think we can save some money in this, even if it's only a couple $100 a year, or could be more than that, if we would renegotiate this agreement with this law firm to do this. So I would just encourage, I don't know if there's a formal way we need to do this, I would just encourage our mayor and our administrator to renegotiate this. And especially not pay this person for travel time.
Trustee Horne, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm glad that we've got somebody as astute as yourself that is reviewing these things periodically, along with the treasurer, but also is one of the signers on the payments. I think it's important that we keep our eyes open to these things. This is something that, not just pertaining to the specifics of this, but the attorney, Krzyzewski, and myself, as well as the administrator, have discussed the fact that this is simply an appointment. It is not, I don't believe there's actually any kind of binding contract on this agreement. Just do keep in mind that not just any lawyer can provide this service. There's a not overly robust, but there is a measure of certification that needs to go with this position. And so just keep in mind that it's not just the legal expertise, it's also having taken a specific certification training path that allows them to do this. And it just, basically, they're acting as a judge, basically, on behalf of the village. And so that's the specifics of the hourly rate, the 3-hour minimum, basically, is what she's charging us for. It would be worth a phone call to find out how much prep time she's doing off-site. If she's got a 3-hour minimum, and she's truly only putting in a half hour or an hour, or whatever the case may be, then yeah, we need to really reevaluate, is this how we want to proceed? She deals more with the police department, directly with the police and the chief, because that's who handles the processing of all this. We can talk to the chief later and find out what his insight is into the matter. I think she's done a fair job of representing the concerns of the village on the hearing, the way she's handled these. But it's very well worthwhile to evaluate the situation, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just one comment, as is often the case, when the program starts out, there's a high level of attendance and, a lot of necessary work that goes into it, and this may very well be reflective of the onset of that program, but over time, things have a way of settling in, and people in the public get the message, and maybe there's not as much coming before, and so that may be why that was said at that point, during the onset of our adjudication process. I would refer to the chief to get a little better handle on that, but
Just as a comparison, I know she comes here, was it Tuesdays or in the middle of the week sometimes when she comes, and it's usually a 1 o'clock hearing. Chief, approximately how many people come for the hearing?
She may only be in here with 1 or 2 people at the hearing, but what everybody needs to understand is there's as many as 30 or 50 people that are scheduled for the hearing that may or may not show up. And so we have to be ready for, that contingency. And when those people don't show up, when she issues a finding of liable against those people, that's her time at that desk to sign each and every one of those documents as liable. So she does spend a good deal of time doing that in addition to what she would be engaging in.
And I will say this, I did, just not even in preparation for this, but I was at another municipality observing their adjudicated hearings. And they had packed out the boardroom, very similar size to this. They packed it out, and people standing in the hallway waiting to get in. I thought, wow. But then I got to watch the adjudicator basically dismissed 75% of the matters, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if they're just going to dismiss them, maybe it's because it's too hot and he didn't like being there because he wasn't the regular adjudicator. I don't know what the deal was, but it was brutal. It was almost an embarrassment. It's like, it undermines the police department, code enforcement, whatever else, if you're just going to be dismissive of their efforts. And it's important to make sure you have somebody who has a proper balance. Maybe we've been so tough on the public, I don't know, but if we've been so tough on the public that maybe we used to have 50 or however many people show up, and now we don't, because we basically said, doesn't matter, the police are always right, or, whatever. There needs to be a balance of finding out, is there a reasonable expectation to say, does the adjudicator even have the ability to, some discretion, and she does, to acknowledge some grace on those things. And we'll look into this stuff. It's a point well taken. Thank you. Anybody else under new business? Okay. At this point, we'll open the microphone to the public. Non-agenda items, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Come to the podium, give your name and address, please.
Hi, Colette Rain, 25828 South Hoover Court, the Highlands. This is for Trustee Gonzalez. So they're gonna start planting the trees now, but, just going through the Highlands, there's a huge amount of trees cut down. Are they planning on taking out the stumps and then planting the new trees in the same?
From what I've gathered, in some of the places where the stumps should have been, or they do a stump grind out, but for where they're gonna be able, Mr. Neary, as part of the Planning and Zoning Commission, you can probably help me on this. As I understand it, some of the stumps that have not been ground out enough, we cannot plant trees in the exact spot that they were. If they were the younger trees, probably more in Country Meadows, younger trees, it probably can be done. But the trees will probably be within 3 to 6 feet alongside
Yeah.
in the older trees.
I know, because some of the trees that were cut down in the Highlands, they're,
Yeah, so without a doubt, the stumping that was done previously is not well enough or good enough, deep enough to plant trees in the same spot. So as we're been advised, 3 to 6 feet alongside.
even with all the roots down there.
Yes, because they get dug deep enough.
And just to clarify, we're not gonna be able to replace all of them in one season. It's gonna be a process, doing a little bit in each subdivision and all that over time. And the residents that show the initiative, that wanna come to the village and ask for assistance, where they wanna partner with us because they wanna show the initiative, that's what Trustee Gonzalez has stepped up and defined a path to do. So otherwise, we're still looking for grants to underwrite the cost of it because we don't have enough money to actually do a complete replacement. I think, if I heard correctly, Frankfurt spending $1 million just to replace trees. And we don't have the kind of budget for that. And I know you guys don't want to see an excessive tax increase just to deal with trees. So we're looking for effective ways to do moderately in places as we can. Getting rid of the old trees that are basically, we got the starters at the base because they're dead at the top. You know, getting those ground down helps, you know, because it doesn't look so bad, but then we still do want to work towards replacing them. And Trustee Gonzalez and you have taken a step on that. And I gotta say, DJ Grizel has done a phenomenal job of managing some of those expectations as well as the superintendent of the public works. So, thank you for your.
All right, thank you.
So it'll be a few-step process, but we'll work on it.
I know, because when I first moved in here, when I first moved into the Highlands 13 years ago, the tree that John Pop planted died, so I just saw this new thing too. I actually dug out or cut down the old tree, dug a big ditch around the stump, and then pulled the whole stump out before I put a new tree in. And that was a lot of work.
They have machines now to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
When I said come back to the microphone, I wasn't expecting so early.
Ought to know better than that. George Pearson, 5108 Roberts Ridge Road. A couple of things Administrator Wallace had pointed out from the market study. I would, again, I wasn't certain at what point I would have the ability to mention this, but if you could have what Trustee Gonzalez had mentioned about the schools, have that incorporated into the market plan, I'm not sure if that is a great selling point, you know, to be placed into that program as well. Two, I still have not seen a detailed report on any of the finances or what had occurred during the Fall Fest, and now we're at Halloween happenings. I think that's also important, you know, along the physical, you know, the fiscal responsibility of this village. One of the things I had also tried to make sure. Last, and certainly not least, Administrator Wallace had also mentioned there is a piece of legislation, it's called HB 924, that is presented now it's passed the House, the Representative State House, and it's before the Senators now, the Illinois State Senators. And I sent off a letter, you know, to Senator Hutchinson as well as Senator Napoleon Harris that I believe it is fiscally irresponsible for the state legislators down in Springfield to place on us, the smaller villages and the communities, a responsibility of only being able to hire companies or contractors that will have certified people that are run through the Department of Labor. That will also increase the fees. That will increase your property taxes if villages will only be able to hire contractors that are using people certified through the Department of Labor. I believe that it is pertinent that each and every single one of you reach out to both Senator Hutchinson as well as Senator Harris and inform them, you know, and let Thaddeus Jones and Mr. Smith know that you're not happy with their voting approving of HB 924 as well. Otherwise, we will be looking at higher property taxes. Thank you.
And just as a point of reference, I know George and I have talked, some of the things that are interesting is there's been neighboring states that you would least expect to do this, but they have passed a right to work legislation. State of Illinois, even some of the gubernatorial candidates have taken the soft approach and said, well, if we can't pass the legislature, why should I even take a position on it? I've asked the attorney actually to look at us being a home rule community. It could very easily be an economic test, if you will, if we were to take some consideration for implementing a right to work consideration as a home rule unit of government that would allow us to do something that would say to those people that are looking to build a business and they want to be in Illinois, but they don't like the strong arming that is taking place in other communities throughout the state, this would not necessarily say you're for or against certain things, it's just saying the choice is now the employees. And that's really what it comes right down to, as to how that works. And so it's something worth considering. I don't know that we have the legal ability to do it, but it's something to look into. There's other things that, frankly, if you're going to go that route, you might as well look into seeing as a municipality, do we have the right to exercise limits on tort things and stuff like that. I kind of doubt it, but hey, as long as we're looking at considerations for what we can do to make Monee stand out, put it on the map as a place for economic growth. The businesses aspire to be here. They're going to put corporate headquarters here. They're going to grow their businesses here. If we're wrong, if we heard anything other than just doing a simple test on Illinois economics and politics, it's a good test to consider. So we'll see what comes of it, but Larry, I know you're going to look into some of those issues. So, anybody else?
Good evening. Wayne Meeks, 5022 West Herbert Court. We have an issue with parking on the street of Herbert Court, and we have an issue with RV campers on Herbert Court. I first purchased a camper in 2005, and I had it in my driveway until this April. I bought a new one and put it in the same spot in the driveway, and now it's cost me nothing but money, grief, and aggravation. How I can get away with parking it where I parked it in front of the house in the driveway for so many years, nobody said a word. Now, from what I understand, I must have ticked somebody off in the neighborhood because somebody's been calling and complaining. Okay, this one here, which is 36 feet long, does block the sidewalk. Okay, as a Vietnam vet from George, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
From 1967 through 1970, I am a true believer in the ADA, because I've been with many, many, many men that went down. Which I am not above the law, so I figured out the best way to move it was to put it on the side of the house. Now, which is totally out of sight, unless you're standing looking directly in front of the house. I'm still getting grief on it, because it's not parked on an approved surface. I understand what the approved surface is, but if I pour the concrete slabs, the 3 concrete slabs, what I want to do is put landscaping brick all the way around and put the stone in that matches my landscape, so it looks nice. Can't do that. They want a solid surface. Now, I mean, I don't like to be a troublemaker, or a snot nose or anything else, but I think I'm just catching a lot of heat, Mr. Mayor, over something that I don't need to have. Everybody on our block keeps their house up, keeps them trim, keeps them nice and neat, and I don't understand what the problem is. I have a drawing here which I would like each trustee to look at, and I mean, if the ordinance can't be changed, then I gotta do what I gotta do. Just like we did in the service, you gotta do what you gotta do. I would like somebody to hand these to them, or if I can. I don't know if I got enough for everybody, but Chief, he don't care. He's already got my ticket money, so. But it's just a thing that I think needs to be reviewed, because I personally took an hour and a half ride through town today and stamped about, I would guess Carol could go out, and she couldn't get caught up with enough people parked on gravel.
Could I make a simple comment before he goes any further?
Let's just go and continue.
I mean, there's so many vehicles that are parked on gravels for boats, campers, automobiles, and the ordinance states that every vehicle must be parked on solid surface.
Sure. Okay.
Now, as far as, like I said, the sidewalk deal, I'm no better than anybody else. I was wrong, I paid my tickets, move on,
Right.
you know.
And I think you'd come into the office, what, about a month ago, Mr. Walls? He talked to you or me or both? Or,
Yes.
And I think it was while the chief was out of town, that I believe we had identified a method of utilizing a little bit of common sense, if you will, and asking for, you know, that if you're gonna be parking it there.
Well, here's the situation. Okay, now, I mean, just as a theory, I know Barry came in and had a meeting with you in this. I called the police department. The radio lady told me, she says, I will send a note out to every officer, you have to park on that side of the street. Well, guess what? Wayne got the ticket. So Wayne goes to court, judge tells me the police officer does not have the right to tell you you can park in okay on a posted no parking area. He's not above the law either. He can't change the law. If it's posted no parking, that means no parking. Nobody has permission to give you.
Sure.
Pay your tickets or on the way out. So this is the dilemma, why I want to put it where I want to put it.
Sure.
Because my neighbor still has, and I think you know about that, the dilemma of when he brings his home to pack it and go. And I don't think that's right. And I think that side of the street shouldn't even have a no parking on there. Because I've been told it's for fire purposes. Well, I can put a semi at 60 miles an hour down the middle of that street parked on both sides.
Yeah, and Chief, do you mind giving us the trustees a little bit of background on why the parking is there?
When the street lights were put in and they weren't adequate for two-side parking, the signs are automatically put on the side of the road where the hydrants are, or at least they should be for no parking. And that would be the purpose of the signage being there. Normally it's because of a lane width that's not as wide as it should be.
Okay, could we possibly look at it, and even an odd day parking? One day you can park on the even side, and next day you can park on the odd side.
You'd be surprised at how confused people get even when you think you're doing.
I understand that. You know how confusing it is when you do need to park on the street, and you got 40 cars lined up down the street, but you can't utilize it, and they don't like it.
Mr. Mayor,
Go
again,
ahead.
and I appreciate everything you're doing here, but I really think this should go before our planning and zoning commission and perhaps a special use permit or a variance on the ordinance would be, because he has done everything right. But this could go directly in front of our planning and zoning commission, right, this, and they can issue or recommend to us a special use permit or a variance to the ordinance for this board to approve.
Because I mean, I'm gonna spend the money and put it in right.
I would concur with
Yeah,
trustee
permits and all.
Gonzalez. As a chair of the zoning committee, as soon as I heard this, I thought this ought to be going to zoning committee. I think they can resolve it without you having to come back.
Yeah, the problem is, in order for it to go to the zoning committee, I believe you still have to put your special use fees in place and everything else for that to even be heard by the planning and zoning. Couple things, I'll just make observations. I appreciate the fact that what trustee Gonzalez and trustee Holston have indicated there. Keep in mind that what this doesn't illustrate to the casual eye, it does not illustrate the proximity to the neighboring property. It doesn't indicate what will happen with water flow and what that'll affect. I'm just saying, I understand what you have here, I'm not disputing it, I'm sensitive to your needs. And that's the reason why when you came in and the administrator and I both talked to you about, let's try to find a reasonable consideration with the police department, let's let common sense prevail. It seems like we have a shortage sometimes, but, you know, we're working on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got 5 months, so, you know, I just wanted to try to get something.
But the other thing is here is that if you're gonna be parking this on a gravel area and you're just gonna have a couple.
It's not gonna be on gravel, it's gonna be on 3 inches of concrete.
But the illustration here indicates a preponderance of gravel other than a couple of pads that.
All the gravel is for is to keep the weeds from growing and decorative.
I understand. All I'm saying is that this could go before the P and Z with a request for a special use.
Okay,
There's
I appreciate
format for that. Jim, could you introduce yourself to the gentleman here?
Mr. Meeks and I have been talking many
This
times
guy's
over
in
this.
anyway.
So Jim would be the person you would talk to about moving it forward and helping you identify the steps necessary. I'm just making casual observations.
Yeah.
The reality is there's more to it than just a pencil drawing. Even though this illustrates a point, there's gonna be other things that are gonna be necessary for the zoning board to be able to even digest this properly. So
And the reason I would like, sir, is the variance is because with the no parking on that side of the street, I am dead in the water.
I understand.
Mr.
I'm
Meeks.
totally dead.
Mr.
The
Meeks.
police told me, if I park it on that side of the street, I will get a ticket. If I bring it home to load it and put it in the driveway, you will get a ticket. Because you will block the sidewalk to bring it home and load it, which is an ADA law, which I can truly, truly understand that. It's just,
I understand.
you know, and I says, it's just a $50,000 mistake that I can't use. I can't utilize it where I'm at unless I can get this variance for where I want to put it.
I understand. Mr. Administrator.
Yeah, I do believe that there might be a solution here. I'd like to have Mr. Smith, myself, and Mr. Meeks set up a time to have a meeting and see what we can resolve.
I'm very, very
We
proud.
appreciate your
Thank you.
concerns and we will work to find a remedy that makes you and your neighbors happy.
Okay, thank you.
And the police.
Yeah. They'll say you can't beat City Hall, so, but if you see Don, tell him I said thank you for his time and his service. I was trying to catch him before he left. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, no other takers on open to the public. I believe we need to meet briefly for executive session for the review for release of executive session minutes over the last 6 months. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session at this time. Time is now 8:39.
Make that motion.
Second.
Raisik and Horne, roll call please.
Trustee Racick? Yes. Gray? Yes. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Horne? Yes. Olson?
Yes.
Conklin?
I don't believe there will be any action taken. Close this.